Let's begin our podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into something, something that really affects all of us in so many ways. The science of deception.
Yeah, lying. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. And we're not just talking about, casual observations. We want to get into the why. Why does it happen? How do our brains even do it?
And why is it so darn hard to spot sometimes?
Exactly. Plus the impact it has, on everything.
And look, we know you want to get a good handle on complex stuff like this without wading through dense academic papers. So that's the plan.
Right. We've pulled together insights from psychology research, looked at the neuroscience, what the brain is actually doing, and perspectives from social science, too.
To give you that full picture, but, clearly.
Couldn't have put it better. So our mission today, pretty straightforward, unpack the key science behind lying, why we do it, what's happening upstairs.
Why it's so tricky to detect.
And the ripple effects. Get ready for maybe some surprising facts and hopefully a much clearer understanding of this, very human thing.
Okay, so let's start with something foundational. Lying isn't some, rare defect. It is everywhere. A totally widespread human behavior. Across all societies, all levels.
Yeah, from, a little kid bending the truth.
To much bigger, more significant deceptions, it's always there.
It really is. And it's not just black and white, is it? There's a whole range. Little white lies, maybe, just to be polite.
Right.
All the way up to stuff that can cause real harm. But here's a kicker, something that really stood out from the sources, Brian.
What's that?
Our ability, yours and mine, everyone's, to actually tell if someone is lying, it's often no better than pure chance.
Like flipping a coin. It's kind of shocking when you think about it.
It is. 50-50.
And that tells you straight away, this is complicated stuff. It's not simple. Deception is woven into our psychology, our brain wiring, our social lives. And think about the impact for you personally. It affects trust in your relationships, right?
Oh.
And even, global politics with misinformation and all that. It's huge.
Okay, so let's dig into the psychology first. What's actually happening in someone's head when they decide, okay, I'm not going to tell the truth here? It's more than just saying something wrong, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Lying is surprisingly demanding, mentally, I mean. There's this key thing called cognitive load.
Cognitive load, okay.
Think of it like this. Telling the truth is usually just recalling something. You access the memory. But lying, you have to invent a story.
Right, make it up.
Make it up. Make sure it hangs together, that it's consistent. And then you have to remember the lie so you don't trip yourself up later.
That sounds exhausting.
It takes way more mental horsepower. So a key takeaway here for you listening is that this extra effort, it can sometimes show up, maybe longer pauses, more ums and ums. Maybe answers aren't quite as direct, little hints, potentially.
That makes total sense. Like your brain's juggling, trying to keep the real story and the fake story separate.
Exactly.
What about emotions? We often think, oh, you can tell because someone looks guilty or nervous.
Yeah, emotional factors are definitely part of the mix. Guilt, fear of getting caught, those feelings can absolutely be there. But, and this is really crucial, to grasp, people who lie often or are maybe just better at it, they can learn to suppress those outward signs.
Control it.
Yeah. Control the facial expressions, the body language. That's why relying on those classic nervous liar stereotypes, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, it's just not reliable.
So the idea of a single tell, like in the movies, that always gives a liar away, mostly myth.
Mostly myth. Now, something else the sources mentioned is when we even start lying, apparently we're not born doing it.
Really?
That's right. It actually develops alongside something called theory of mind.
Theory of mind. Okay, refresh me on that.
It's basically understanding that other people have their own thoughts, beliefs, and knowledge that are separate from yours.
Right. They don't know what I know.
Exactly. And once a child gets that realizes what's in my head isn't automatically in yours, well, then the door opens for intentionally misleading someone.
Wow.
It's actually seen as a totally normal, even important step in cognitive development.
So that little fib your kid tells about who broke the vase is actually a sign their brain is hitting a milestone. That's kind of wild.
It is, isn't it?
Okay, so our brains are definitely working overtime when we lie. Let's get into the neuroscience bit. What parts of the brain are firing up?
Okay, a really key player is the prefrontal cortex. That's the bit right at the front, behind your forehead.
Right.
Think of it as the brain's CEO.
The executive control center.
Precisely. It handles all the higher level stuff, decision-making, planning, complex thought. So when someone's constructing a lie, thinking, is this believable? How should I say this? The prefrontal cortex is super busy.
Right. It's coordinating the whole operation. What else? The sources mentioned the amygdala, too?
You have the amygdala. It's a deeper, maybe more primitive part involved in processing emotions.
Fear, guilt, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Its activity can vary, though. Someone feeling very guilty might show more amygdala activity. But again, like we said, about controlling emotions.
It's not a guaranteed sign they're lying.
Not at all. But there was this really interesting finding about what happens when someone lies repeatedly.
Ah, yes. Tell us about that. That sounded fascinating.
This is really something for you to think about. Some research suggests that the more someone lies, the less their amygdala reacts to the act of lying. It gets kind of desensitized.
Desensitized.
So the emotional alarm bells get quieter.
That seems to be the idea. The negative emotional kickback reduces. And this could potentially make it easier to lie the next time and the time after that.
Whoa.
It's a huge insight, really. The more you do it, the easier it might become neurologically. Like it lowers your internal, hang on, this is wrong signal. Lying could almost become self-reinforcing at a brain level.
That is genuinely mind-opening. The brain just gets used to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know how the brain and mind are involved, but let's circle back to the why. Why do people lie? What are the main drivers? Well, the motivations are really varied, which, adds to the challenge of spotting lies.
Right.
A big one is just self-preservation.
Protecting yourself.
Exactly. Lying to avoid getting punished, avoid negative consequences, avoid embarrassment. You're late for work. You blame traffic even if it wasn't really the traffic.
We've all maybe done that one.
That's self-preservation.
Okay, so avoiding the bad stuff. What about getting good stuff? Lying to get ahead.
Oh, for sure. Personal gain is another major driver. This could be financial, like exaggerating experience on a CV.
Right.
Or social gain, maybe taking credit for a colleague's idea to impress the boss. Stuff like that.
Makes sense. Lying for the reward, but it's not always selfish, is it? I remember reading about altruistic lies.
Yes, and this really shows the complexity for you, the listener. People definitely lie to protect other people's feelings or to prevent someone else from getting hurt.
Like telling your friend their questionable new haircut looks great.
Exactly. Or telling a kid their drawing is a masterpiece. It's often driven by wanting to maintain harmony, avoid causing distress, social lubrication sometimes.
So protect yourself, get ahead, or sometimes be kind in a way. That covers a lot of ground. What about when lying isn't really about a specific goal, but more like a habit?
Right. That leads us towards pathological lying.
No.
This is different. It's more compulsive. Individuals lie excessively, often without any obvious reason or benefit.
Just a lie.
Yeah. It can be linked to certain psychological conditions. It's not quite same as the more goal-directed lying we've mostly been talking about.
Okay, that sounds like another whole layer of complexity, right? So we know why, we know how the brain's involved, but the million-dollar question for everyone, how do we actually spot it? It feels like we should be able to, but the science says not so much.
You nailed it. It's incredibly tough for most people, despite what our gut might tell us.
Yeah.
We tend to latch onto nonverbal cues, right?
Yeah, fidgeting, not making eye contact, maybe sweating.
All that stuff. But the research shows, again and again, those are actually really unreliable indicators.
Unreliable, but they seem so obvious.
Well, think about it. Someone who lies a lot might learn to control those things perfectly. And on the flip side, a perfectly honest person might fidget or avoid eye contact just because they're nervous about being accused.
The stress of the situation itself.
Exactly. So for you trying to read body language to spot a lie, it's often, frankly, a bad strategy.
So forget the movie interrogations where the bad guy can't look the hero in the eye.
Pretty much, yeah. The reality is way fuzzier. Now, verbal cues? Maybe slightly more promising, but still tricky.
Like what?
Well, things like inconsistencies in the story, obviously. Or maybe someone provides way too much detail, like unnecessary, elaborate stuff that doesn't quite add up.
Overcompensating?
Could be. Or using lots of qualifying phrases, to be perfectly honest, basically. Things like that might be flags, but again, honest people might do that too. No guarantees.
Right. No silver bullet. What about lie detectors? Polygraphs. They seem like the go-to in crime dramas.
Ah, the polygraph. Okay, so what it measures is physiological stuff, heart rate, breathing, sweating.
The body's stress response.
Right. The idea is lying causes stress, which changes these readings. But its accuracy is hugely debated in the scientific world.
Really? Why?
Well, there are big concerns about reliability. And people could potentially learn techniques to beat the test, control their responses. That's a major reason why polygraph results usually aren't allowed as evidence in court.
Wow, okay. Not as clear-cut as TV makes it seem.
Not even close.
Yeah.
The scientific consensus just isn't there for making really critical decisions based on it.
So if body language is unreliable, verbal cues are tricky, and polygraphs are debatable, why are we generally so bad at this? Is there a reason?
This is where a concept called truth default theory comes in. It's really insightful, put forward by Timothy Levine.
Truth default. What's the idea?
Basically, it suggests that as humans, our default setting, our go-to assumption is that people are telling the truth.
We tend to believe people first.
Exactly. And think about it. It probably helps society function, right? Imagine if you doubted every single thing everyone said all day. Communication, cooperation, it would just grind to a halt.
Total paralysis.
But that helpful default, that tendency to trust, well, it makes us more vulnerable when someone is actually lying. We're not naturally wired to be lie detectors because we're wired to assume honesty first.
So our instinct to trust actually works against us when it comes to spotting deception.
That's a really interesting point about how we navigate the world.
It really is.
Okay, let's zoom out one last time, the bigger picture. What are the real-world consequences of all this deception happening around us?
Oh, the impact is massive. Think about your personal life first. In relationships, lying just eats away at trust.
A foundation, really.
Absolutely. And once trust is gone, rebuilding it is incredibly hard, often impossible. It can just destroy relationships.
Yeah, sadly true. And in more formal systems, like the courts. The consequences there can be truly devastating. Yeah. Think about false testimony, perjury. It can lead to wrongful convictions, innocent people locked up.
Oh, God.
Or guilty people walking free.
Yeah.
The stakes couldn't be higher when lies enter the legal system.
Chilling to think about those potential injustices. And zooming out even further, society as a whole.
Well, on a societal level, widespread deception, especially things like misinformation, disinformation that we see so much of now, it erodes public trust. Trust in government, trust in the media, even trust in science. When people don't know what or who to believe anymore,
it gets chaotic.
It really does. It weakens social cohesion. It can harm democracy, impact public health. We've seen plenty of examples recently.
Definitely feels very relevant right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We have certainly covered a lot of ground today on the science of deception. It's clearly way more complicated and nuanced than just telling a lie.
Absolutely. We've seen it's, tough work mentally involves specific brain areas like that prefrontal cortex and amygdala.
Right. And that weird desensitization thing with the amygdala.
Exactly. Driven by all sorts of motivations, self-protection, gain, even kindness sometimes. And crucially, it's surprisingly hard to spot reliably.
Mostly because we're sort of built to believe people first.
At that truth default, yeah. Understanding all these pieces is really vital for you, just for navigating your own life and making sense of the information flying around.
And then for you listening, wanting that solid understanding without getting bogged down, hopefully, this deep dive has given you exactly that, a much clearer view of this, universal human behavior.
So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Knowing how hard it is to reliably detect lies, and knowing our natural inclination is actually to believe others, what does that really mean for how you build trust, in your own relationships? And how do you navigate this world absolutely full of information and disinformation and competing stories?
That is definitely something to chew on.